Welcome to the European Business Aviation Network. No? I'm just making sure you are all awake. Yes, very good. First of all, who am I? My name is Martin Andrews, and I'm a TV presenter and journalist here in Moscow. I work and present programs for the channel Russia Today in English. And it's a channel that broadcasts news mainly and cultural lifestyle documentaries all around the world. I've presented shows for the BBC, worked in America, and I came to Russia about 6 years ago. I thought I would be here for 3 months for this incredible experience. And here I still am. It's a very long 3 months. Why Moscow? Well, I think that it's, first of all, the most misunderstood city in the world. It's the city of extremes. It's minus 30 in the winter, plus 30 in the summer. There's an amazing cultural scene here, and more importantly for you guys in this room, it's an incredible place for new businesses. I've seen in the past 6 years this whole city completely change. In fact, every single year, new businesses, new restaurants, new things open, and some close all the time. We had an amazing night last night in the restaurant gallery, so I hope that some of you aren't too hungover. It reminds me, actually, I went to a doctor's recently because I had a bit of a headache, and I said, Izvinite, do you have anything for my headache? Chut-chut plocker. And he said, 6 seconds. Take this for a nervous breakdown. Take this for depression, and take this for your headache. And I said, well, this is all very well and good, doctor, but do you have anything else apart from vodka? Anyway, I'm not the most important person in the room tonight, of course. The most important person today we're going to speak to first is Bridget. Bridget is going to speak to us first. And put your hands together for Bridget Baumann. Thank you.
Good morning. Indeed, welcome. I'm Brigitte Baumann. I'm president of the European Business Angel Network, the trade association for early stage investors. And that is both business angels and seed funds. And just to start a little bit with definitions, business angels, that means we are private individuals who decide to invest our money, but also our know-how in young, innovative companies. We usually invest anywhere from per investment in a company as a group, let's say several €100,000 to several million. And it gives me great pleasure to be here. This is our annual Congress. And I thought that I would give you a little bit of background of who we are and what is happening in the industry right now, which is really the base from which we developed the agenda for the next 2 days. So, can we put my, there, great. Oh, is it on the side? It's not? Okay, great. So a little bit, wait, it should have been, so somehow you're getting to see the first. Yes, that's the first one. Okay, perfect. So who is here today? There's going to be about 400 of us today. About 250 individuals from Russia, Russian investors. And then there's about 150 of us from a number of countries. You see, countries and continents. We have three continents, so Europe, but also we always have wonderful guests from the Americas and from Asia. So this is all about networking. And here you see a little bit of the mix of the individuals who are here. This would not be, This would not be possible without our sponsors. So at EBAN, we have three major sponsors: the European Space Agency, NAREC in the field of clean technologies, and BDO, who is our research partner. We also would not be here without the event sponsors, and I know Konstantin will talk about it. We also wouldn't be here without Konstantin and his team, who have been fantastic partners. Now, if we look a little bit about the industry, I've given you a little bit of definitions. How big are we? Well, we're big. We're becoming an asset class, but we're still relatively small compared to where we know the potential is in Europe. We represent about 400 clubs of investors, which we call BANs, Business Angel Networks. We represent about 70,000 business angels, and who invest around 3 to 4 billion euros a year. And that is becoming actually bigger and bigger than what venture capitalists. So venture capitalists are individuals who've been entrusted money and have a fund. Before they were investing as much as we were in early stage, but they have moved on. The trend that we are seeing is, first of all, very positive, because more and more governments, and in Europe, many of countries have an economic challenge, and it is becoming more and more recognized that entrepreneurship is a key solution to those economic challenges. And very quickly after you mentioned entrepreneurship, access to finance for entrepreneurs is a key challenge. And this is exactly where we come in. We come in often in technology companies, and we help bring in the business know-how and the finance. So that is the good news. We know we have more potential when we look at our fellow colleagues in the US. They tend to be both in number of investors and the investment made at least 3 times bigger to 5 times bigger than us. And that's why we know we have a lot of potential to grow. A little bit of information about who we are and how we invest. So here you see the different areas of where we're investing, and ICT continues to be the major area, and so this is perfect that we are in this location. If we look at where we are, we're in evolution also here, that initially we were primarily doing first investments. On average now, we make 3 to 4 investments in startups. And so in more and more countries, the percentage of follow-on investments, so we call it follow-on rounds, is becoming bigger. And this is where we're very happy that there's corporations in the room, because corporations usually are the exit for us. If we look now a little bit of the space we're in, we are very much seed, but we're starting to go into also internationalization financing, so that is more expansion. And this is why it's so critical that we can work together, because we work between networks from one country to the next. Now, what is happening in our industry? Well, there's still growth and at the same time structural development in our industry. There is angel networks that are coming every day to being, and we are more than happy as a trade association to support those business angel managers. There's becoming more and more established business angel networks and seed funds. And at the same time, we have new players. We have new players both on the source of deals. There's increasing, probably many of you have heard the word crowdfunding. So that is democratizing, enabling more and more individuals with small amounts of money who also want to contribute to entrepreneurs, platforms where that can happen. There's big controversies. It will be a topic of definitely one of our panels and many discussions. We also see that as investors, we like to see if we can make the process more efficient. So there's more and more use of the internet to make the process of investing smoother. So that is another trend. And accelerators, who often are now started by ex-entrepreneurs, of the coaching, the mentoring, and the kickstart of deals, this is all on the supply side. We now see, as I mentioned, governments are not only becoming very much more positive about investors, providing tax incentive schemes, but are developing co-investment funds. We're seeing entrepreneurs and investors who first start investing their money, but now are creating funds. And that is usually we call them micro VCs or entrepreneur funds. And last but not least, we're very happy to see that corporations are now coming in and building bridges with us, have many activities with entrepreneurs and investors, because as I mentioned, about 80% of the time they are the exit for business angels, and the value of the exits are around 20 to 40 million euros. That is it. I would like to pass it on to our general manager, Chiara Di Caro, who joined us last September and will give you a little bit of information about IBAN.
Hi, good morning. I think I should have a presentation. Probably they can put the other presentation on. Okay, this is it. So I will use the next 5 minutes to say a few things about what we do as an association, and especially to clarify some words and some acronyms that you will hear during the day, so we are sure that we are all talking about the same things. I would like you to look at these slides and memorize it. The 5 boxes are the 5 categories that we represent as an association. I'm going to explain it very basically, because that's the way I learned. It's 5 months ago. So what we represent business angels. What is a business angel? As Brigitte already said, a business angel is an individual person investing his or her own money in a seed, in a company in the seed and or startup phase. There are 2 main characteristics that can differentiate a business angel, and this is an European definition that we have agreed at European level with our members. The 2 important characteristics is that the investor is the person making his own investment decision. So he's not delegating the investment decision to anyone, by his doing the decision, is making the decision. And the second important element is that on the top of the money, the business angel is putting at the disposal of the entrepreneur is a network of contacts, is mentoring abilities. So what we called the 2 wings of the angels. On one wing is the money, and the other wing is the mentoring. And this is a crucial element. Thanks, Peter, for approving what I'm saying. So these are the 2 wings, and of course the business angel have to respect a certain code of conduct, anti-laundering regulations, etc. Business angels, the way they work, they group together, they gather in networks. These networks can be organized at local level, regional level, and sectorial level. They have different way of working. They can charge a membership fee to their members. They can charge a success fee on the investment. They can be cross-border as well, so working in different countries. After the other category that we represent is seed funds. Seed funds are early stage funds investing from 20k to 2 million euros in one deal, and they have a size from 5 to 2 million euros. I'm going back to the first slide that you saw, so that now that we have described the categories, this could be more clear for you. So we represent few individual angels. We represent the business angel networks, BANs. So during the day when you hear the word BANs, you know that they are business angel networks. We represent federations, so National Association of Local Business Angel Networks. We represent seed funds, and we also have several associate members, which are European organizations, other local associations related to the early stage markets. As an association, we have 5 pillars of activity. I'm going to describe them very quickly. The first pillar of activity is the professional standards, meaning that we try to professionalize our market, to professionalize our networks in order for them to be more reliable when they interact with public governments, in order to receive more support in co-investment funds with the public authorities. The second pillar of activity is what we do in terms of research and networking events for peers. We do several publications on the size of the market, on the tax incentives existing in different countries, on the co-investment funds existing in different countries. And we use our events, like our Congress and our Winter University, to showcase best practices, so to raise awareness about the business angel sector and the early stage investing sector, and also to present what's going on in different countries in terms of tax incentives, co-investments, etc. The third important pillar is lobbying. We do lobbying at European level in front of the European institution to create a better environment for business angels in Europe. The fourth pillar is what we call awareness and capacity building, meaning training courses. We have a spin-off of the association, which is the IBAN Institute, through which we organize courses to business angel network managers and seed fund managers to improve their abilities in recruiting new members, screening the business ideas, how to do due diligence. So these are very technical issues that we teach to business angel networks and seed fund, business angel network managers and seed fund managers if they want to start a new network. And the last pillar is the support to cross-border activities, which also include cross-border investments. That's it. I hope it was clear, and I wish you a very nice event. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, they certainly chose the right week this weekend. I think it was snowing here in Moscow about only 10 days ago. And many of you in this room, actually, it's your first time here in Russia. So it's a completely different world in the summer than it is in the winter. Next up, we've got Konstantin Fokker. He is the NBAA president. Welcome him on stage. Thank you.
Good morning. I'll probably speak in English. It's IBAN Congress, and I'll try to use as much as I can English that I have in my library. Last month I was at the Angel Capital Association Summit in Austin, Texas, America, and at the starting panel there was someone, kind of president of Angel Capital Association, saying that the angel capital market in the States is very young. I was surprised. If it is young in America, it's even younger in Europe, and it probably means it doesn't exist in Russia. Well, but we are here, we are physically here, so it's not true. It's not true. Even in Roman Empire, were people willing to support young entrepreneurs, young ventures with their capital, with their experience, with their connections. And the Roman Empire is 2,000 years old, or even older. So it's always been around. We didn't know the name of business angels, but we were around. It's a pretty old kind of business. The economic landscape has changed since Roman Empire. the cost and the entry barrier to start a business is very low now. And every year, globally, millions of people start their businesses. And the entry barrier to support these businesses with the money, with experience, are also very low now. And it's a business for many, many people. There are millions of private investors supporting young companies every year. I've got only a couple of pieces of statistics, global statistics, and it supports the resume that you got in your slide, Brigitte. 90%, just listen, 90% of the early stage capital is provided by angel investors, not by the state, not by the banks, not by venture capitalists. It's provided by the angel investors, 80%. In terms of, and it's the scale. In terms of the impact on the market, I've got just one piece of statistics. The company with an angel investor on board is 4 times more likely to succeed. It's a global statistics than a company without an angel. So the name angel have a strange, it may sound, it make effect on the business. And in terms of one more figure on the scale of the market, it's I was trying to put it together yesterday. I probably made it up, but I think that globally every year about $100 billion invested in young companies by angel investors. About 100 billion. But the scale of this market and its role, it's not obvious to even professionals. It's not always obvious to us. We just do it without seeing a bigger picture. And the reason is pretty natural. Everyone is not visible. It's a small money. Sometimes it is a portfolio, but it's not really visible. It's not very significant for the economy, each of us. But given that there are millions of us globally, altogether we're real, very real powerhouse. There is no doubt about that. We understand that the reality doesn't match the perception that exists in the kind of wider ecosystem within the government space. But we don't really care. Most of us are self-sufficient. We do what we like, and we like helping company, we like investing in them, and we don't pay much attention to think about how we look outside. But now and then, like today, we come together, physically together, first of all, to meet, to see each other and be seen. Be seen as a real, positive and very willing group, willing to help, willing to make change. And IBAN Congress is a very good opportunity for this. We're really pleased to host this great event and welcome all of you to the Congress and welcome all of you in Russia. The decision to hold the Congress here in Russia, in Moscow, was pretty venturous. And to some extent, it's a reflection of the risk that we love to take. Yeah? It has been a risk, and we hope it will pay off. The Congress is very, very timely for Russia. We have a very good progress over the last few years in our understanding of the uniqueness and the role of the angel investors. And now we need to move to more practical steps, the decisions to support and stimulate its growth. And the Congress is a very good platform for us to learn, to discuss best practice that exists globally on both micro and micro level. The Congress has already generated practical results for the country. In connection with this event, and many of you know that, we've got more than 40 different events across the country, starting from Kaliningrad to as far away as Vladivostok. And to a big extent, it's thanks to the Congress being held here in Moscow. In many regions, it's the first, but sure, it's not the last touch of the subject. And we are very thankful to all of you who are going to travel beyond Moscow tomorrow, the day after tomorrow, and to share your experience with our colleagues in the regions. It's a good time. as well to say thank you to the IBAN board again for this decision, as well as the IBAN Executive Committee and the Secretariat that has been very helpful to organize this event. It's also a good opportunity to say thank you to all our partners and sponsors. The Congress wouldn't be possible without your support. I will name only the few. It started up from the support of the Russian Technology Corporation, and I'll listen to CEO of the organization a bit later. We are thankful to the Moscow city government and Russian venture company, the Foundation for High-Tech SME Support, Skolkovo Foundation, Vneshekonombank. And we've got two private sponsors that join the forces, the Skolkovo Management School and Nissan, that some of you actually use the nice-looking cars with the logo of the Congress. And of course, it's last but definitely not the least, all this wouldn't make any sense without you guys coming here from all over the world and from all over the Russia Federation. Many of you came from very far away. We've got guests from New Zealand, Australia, America, China, Japan, etc. Taking all the trouble with the Russian visa, with long-haul flight, with jet lag, etc. All our team hope and do our best to ensure that the Congress will be a joyful and useful experience from two major points of view. First, we come here, we come together to better understand the dynamics, first of all, in European markets, in early stage finance. And second point, which is very important to us, better understanding of the dynamics in our country and opportunities that we have here. Once again, very welcome to the IBAN Congress and Russia. Thank you.
Lots of people in this room have no idea about this crazy, gigantic country called Russia. It spreads over 4 continents, and many of you are from Australia and America, like you mentioned, and in comparison to the history here, you have this much. It always amazes me when I tell people that, we have volcanoes in Russia to the far east. To the south, we have palm trees. And I'm sure many of you who are foreigners and you come here for the first time, you go to Red Square. But why is Red Square called Red Square? Well, many people think it's because of the red stars on top of the Kremlin. Is it because of the red jacket? Is it because of the red walls of the Kremlin? Well, actually, many Russians will, of course, know this. It's because it comes from the word krasivy, which means beautiful, which is also a synonym for the word red. So, in fact, it's also called Beautiful Square. And the reason why I mention that is because Russia is indeed a beautiful, beautiful country, and it's a beautiful place to do business. Next up, we have Oleg Fomichov, if you'd like to come up on stage. Oh, he's not here yet. Okay. So we'll go to our next guest, which is Anatoly. Is Anatoly here? Yes. Okay. Anatoly, you'd like to come on stage, please? Thank you very much. And Anatoly is the CEO and chairman of the executive board of Rushnano. You'd like to come on? Thank you very much.
Добрый день, уважаемые дамы и господа. Я бы хотел на русском языке поприветствовать всех, кто собрался сегодня здесь. Прежде всего, европейских бизнес-ангелов, которые участвуют в Конгрессе, проводимом в Москве, российских бизнес-ангелов. И в целом, я думаю, что за более чем тысячелетнюю историю Москвы такое количество ангелов здесь не собиралось ни одного раза. Само по себе сегодняшнее событие уникально. И мне кажется, что это тот случай, когда мы имеем дело с очень правильным событием в очень правильное время. Наверное, не случайен тот факт, что Европейская ассоциация бизнес-ангелов решила провести свой конгресс именно у нас, в Москве. Я думаю, что речь идет о таком здравом выборе места и времени, которое создает классическую ситуацию win-win, двойного выигрыша для двух сторон. Сам по себе интерес к российской экономике и к российской модернизации, мне кажется, вполне обусловленным. И несмотря на то, что Россия сегодня в мировой прессе имеет не очень позитивный имидж, тем не менее реальность гораздо более разнообразна, и часто не так ужасно, как мы можем прочитать в западных газетах. Если основываться на фактах, то напомню прежде всего, что российская экономика сегодня – это 6-я экономика в мире по размеру ВВП. Напомню, что в российской экономике сегодня на ближайшую обозримую перспективу просматриваются устойчивые темпы годового роста в 3,5–4,5%. Напомню, что у российской экономики сегодня объем золотовалютных резервов превышает $500 триллиона. Напомню, что долги, суверенные долги России по отношению к ВВП находятся на одном из самых низких уровней в мире, где-то на уровне около 15%. В России устойчивая макроэкономическая ситуация. Мы ожидаем в этом году инфляцию где-то на уровне 6%. И в этом смысле я упомянул не абстрактные соображения, а реальные факты, которые сегодня общеизвестны всем, кто профессионально связан с экономикой России. Вместе с тем также хорошо известно, что в нашей экономике есть серьезные, глубокие проблемы, в том числе структурные проблемы. Мы считаем, что ситуация, когда 80% российского экспорта – это нефть, газ и цветные металлы, черные цветные металлы, является абсолютно ненормальной. Мы убеждены в том, что задача диверсификации российской экономики не просто актуальна, она жизненно необходима. Мы убеждены в том, что Россия сегодня находится перед дилеммой инновации или деградация. Именно так стоит для нас вопрос, и, собственно, именно поэтому в последние несколько лет задачи модернизации стали приоритетом в деятельности российских лидеров. Я отношусь к тем, кто убежден, что эти задачи глубоко востребованы. Я считаю, что без модернизации наша страна бесконечно отстанет от конкурирующих с ней лидеров. И в то же время я считаю, что абсолютно реальные, базирующиеся на серьезных предпосылках возможности модернизации в России сегодня существуют. Я говорю это не из-за абстрактных соображений, а исходя из того, что уже сделано в России по созданию инновационной экономики, исходя из того, что мы видим сами в нашей стране, пускай в виде даже самых первых и пока еще не окончательных и даже, наверное, не системных шагов. Как хорошо известно, в России со стороны правительства осуществлен целый ряд шагов в последние годы, которые, собственно, на это направлены. В России создается полным ходом проект Сколково, который заточен прежде всего под ранние стадии инновационного цикла. В Сколково создается уникальный университет, Сколтех, нового типа, исследовательский университет. Там же уже первые сотни российских стартапов получили финансовую поддержку. И этот институт, хоть и с небольшой историей, тем не менее, очевидно, становится на ноги. В России функционирует российская венчурная корпорация, которая поддерживает сегодня десятки венчурных фондов, работающих в российских регионах. Мы в российской корпорации нанотехнологий тоже шаг за шагом набираем темп, набираем динамику. У нас сегодня наш совокупный коммитмент по отобранным более чем 100 проектам превышает цифру $15 миллиардов. При этом для нас крайне важно, что более 60% из этих средств – это средства частных инвесторов, которые вкладываются в российский хай-тек вместе с нами, в российские нанотехнологии вместе с нами. Все это, на мой взгляд, разумные, здравые, позитивные шаги, хотя им всего 2-3, максимум 4 года. Важно другое. Важно то, что как бы правительство не пыталось активизировать свою деятельность, какие бы шаги правительство не предпринимало для поддержки инновационной экономики, она не может появиться без не менее, даже, пожалуй, более активной роли, собственно, самого бизнеса. самих частных инвесторов. Именно поэтому, мне кажется, крайне важным каждый шаг, который делается в нашей стране, снизу вверх, а не сверху вниз. Собственно, к такому шагу и относится возникновение Национальной ассоциации бизнес-ангелов. Мне кажется, очень важным, что она уже сегодня объединяет целый ряд сетей бизнес-ангелов, возникших естественным, правильным путем в российских регионах. И хотя мы в Роснано поддерживали и дальше будем поддерживать Российскую ассоциацию бизнес-ангелов, тем не менее, конечно же, главные драйверы ее роста – это то, что происходит в самой предпринимательской среде. И я убежден в том, что в такой степени, в какой российские частные инвесторы, российские бизнес-ангелы, российские предприниматели будут разворачиваться в сторону инновационной экономики, ровно в такой степени можно рассчитывать на то, что она будет крепко становиться на ноги. Мы хорошо понимаем, что у нас в России колоссальное количество проблем в экономике в целом и в инновационной экономике в частности. Российскую экономику душит коррупция, российская экономика базируется на предельно слабых институтах, в российской экономике категорически недостаточно конкуренции, российская экономика сплошь и рядом находится под жестким давлением российской же бюрократии. И тем не менее нельзя не отрицать того факта, что само по себе создание российской инновационной экономики происходит на наших глазах, и уже сегодня мы видим первый результат этого процесса. Конечно, весь проект создания инновационной экономики в России сегодня это пока еще стартап. Он сам по себе еще на очень и очень начальной стадии. Именно поэтому, мне кажется, крайне важным, чтобы этот проект, вырастающий в России, с самого начала был предельно открытым, с самого начала взаимодействовал настолько полно с международным сообществом, насколько это возможно. В сегодняшнем мире невозможно вырастить изолированную инновационную экономику. В сегодняшнем мире невозможно создать инновационную экономику второго сорта. Она просто будет уничтожена конкуренцией в момент своего зарождения. Именно поэтому российская инновационная экономика может либо быть изначально задумана и создаваться как одна из лучших в мире, либо она вообще не возникнет. И именно поэтому крайне важно максимально глубокое, максимально полное взаимодействие с коллегами из-за рубежа. Поэтому, собственно, я и хотел бы завершить тем, с чего начал. Я считаю, что факт проведения сегодняшнего конгресса Европейской ассоциации бизнес-ангелов здесь, в Москве, это очень значимое и очень позитивное событие. Факт того, что сегодня здесь, в этом зале, европейские бизнес-ангелы вместе с российскими бизнес-ангелами будут работать, обсуждать вместе, очень значим. Факт того, что начиная с завтрашнего дня и европейские, и российские бизнес-ангелы отправятся в десятки регионов России, еще более значим. При всей значимости Садового кольца, в котором мы находимся, российская инновационная экономика будет возникать не здесь. Она будет возникать в российских регионах, и мне кажется очень важным, что именно они здесь и представлены, и поездки завтрашние будут региональными. Поэтому, собственно, мне хотелось бы просто еще раз пожелать нам всем удачи и высказать надежду на то, что сегодняшнее событие – это не разовый ивент, а это ситуация, когда мы стартуем сегодня долгий проект, в котором крайне заинтересованы все его участники, представленные сегодня здесь. Удачи!
Спасибо. I'd now like to invite Esther Dyson onto the stage. Is Esther here? You are. Please come on. Esther is the chairman of EdVenture and the in charge of the director for Yandex, I believe. Thank you very much, Esther.
Доброе утро. Я начну по-русски, а потом по-английски. Но я хотела сначала сказать спасибо всем русским здесь, что вы пришли, что Константин и Саша Галицкий меня пригласили сюда. И надеюсь, что будет интересно. После доклада, который будет короткий, будут вопросы. И, пожалуйста, вы можете спросить или по-русски, или по-английски. Okay, for the rest of you, I just thanked the Russian participants and Konstantin and Sasha for inviting me. I'm going to make a few remarks, and then I'd like to try one of these American innovations and do questions and answers until 10:30 when we have a press conference. Or is the mayor going to come or something? Is my timing until 9:30? 10:30? Yeah, okay. So what I'd like to do is briefly tell a story I told last week at the Russian Internet Forum, which was very different from this event. Everybody in jeans. We were in a park outside Moscow, lots of young people running around, very disorganized and very, like here, very enthusiastic. Those were the people that you angels will be funding. Maybe some of you are already funding them. Then I have a few words about the role of angels and also the role of governments. And then if nobody raises their hands, I have some questions for myself. So you can either listen to my questions or ask your own. The story I told to the startups was the story of the stone soup. A con man, a bad guy, a thief, comes to a town with the magic stone. How many of you know this story? Okay, one or two people. So this guy has a stone. It's just a regular stone from the street, but he claims it's magic. He goes to the village. He says, I have a magic stone. It's going to make a magical healing soup. If you eat this soup, you'll have the strength of hundreds. Your eyes will see more clearly. You'll get healthy and powerful. The women will adore you, whatever. If I put this stone into a pot, I just need a little bit of help from you. Please give me some water, maybe some bones of meat from the soup yesterday, perhaps some vegetables, potatoes, spices, and soon we will have the magic soup. So of course the villagers are excited. They come with the vegetables, the water, the meat, put it into the pot. The soup is ready. And the guy has made soup out of nothing. He's a con man. But in fact, he's an entrepreneur. Because that magical stone is an idea. It's an innovation. And without everything else, without the marketing, the management, the production facilities, the whole team, that magic stone has no value at all. So the job of the entrepreneur is to find all the people and get them to work together around his magic stone to build the magic soup. But then his job isn't over, because now he needs to build a restaurant. He needs to build a process, tomato soup on Monday, mushroom soup on Tuesday. And then if he's a really great entrepreneur, he needs to build a restaurant chain and either do an IPO or sell it to McDonald's. But the point of the story is you start with nothing and you build something, you build a process. Sometimes I think people talk too much about the innovation and about the idea, and not enough about the challenge of implementation, turning the idea into a persistent reality to create processes, culture, everything that makes a big company. So that was what I told the entrepreneurs. Now, I can kind of reverse that for the angels, so I'll be quite brief. the purpose of an angel is not just to pick the best idea. It's not even to pick the best people. It's to pick the best people and then help them to succeed. Because almost any entrepreneur for the first time doesn't know very much. And the angel's contacts, the angel's experiences, the angel's failures. There's a nice American joke. It's a board meeting, like with Yandex or Mail.ru or whatever. And the board is there. The CEO says, well, our director of marketing made a big mistake. He launched the product early, it wasn't ready, we positioned it wrong. It cost $3 million. And the board of directors says, so of course you'll fire this guy, right? And the CEO says, no, no, no. I just spent $3 million educating this guy. Now he's valuable. He knows not to do this again. It's this kind of attitude to failure that helps create strong companies. And most angels have had a failure or two in their past. They've learned from their mistakes. They've also learned that mistakes are not fatal. And so they're not afraid to make mistakes. I asked this morning the European Business Angels Network, you heard the 5 different kinds of entities that are part of it. How do you define angel? And the formal definition is an angel invests their own money. So they're not responsible to other people. They can make mistakes without apologizing. They can take more risks. Instead of spending $50,000 on due diligence for a $200,000 investment, they can make 3 or 4 investments. That's our due diligence. We do our due diligence by investing and seeing if it works. Do we still believe in the company 3 or 4 months later? That freedom is tremendously valuable, but it does not provide the follow-on capital. So the angels need to work with bigger investors who do have responsibilities, with governments, with other organizations, once the initial angel investment has been made, to help these companies to grow. And that's, in many ways, the purpose of such a network, to help people form connections, to build those relationships so that once their little company is becoming bigger, they can find help and more investment elsewhere. Some thoughts about the role of government. It's very exciting to hear so much discussion from the Russian government about innovation, about small business, about startups. As it happens, over the weekend I was in Kazan for the very first time. And who is going to Kazan here? You should go, more of you should go. It's really exciting. It's the 3rd city in Russia. It's half Christian, half Muslim. It seems to be half people under 25 years old. It's an amazing place with a very activist spirit. I met with the deputy minister, the minister for education, for information technology, who's 27 years old. Probably you're going to meet with him? Yeah, his name's Nikolai Nikiforov. It was wonderful. Kazan is like, it's much smaller, obviously, than Moscow. It doesn't face some of the city problems of Moscow. And it's a great example of what can happen with government support of entrepreneurs, but not necessarily financial support. It illustrates how important the culture is, the presence of universities. Just, if you leave people alone, they'll do amazing things. Probably what Kazan needs most is, in fact, some grown-ups, some angels who've been through businesses several times, who can give advice to the young entrepreneurs I saw in the IT park. What government can do, as they're doing here in Skolkovo, in Moscow, and in Kazan, is improve the education system, invest in it, help produce students and young people who are prepared to go into business. In reality, many students come out of university and their first education about business is by working in a business. And in that, large companies have a big role. Many large companies, both in Russia and in the US and in other places, spend a lot of money training their employees. I often advise my startups, hire from big companies where people have had some training, not necessarily in science and technology, but in business skills, in communication, in selling process, in management. Small startups can't afford to do that, but that's what they need. So that is something governments and large companies can provide. The second thing governments and large companies can do is buy from these startups. It's much better to have a good customer. Despite all these angels here, a good customer will teach you more, because a customer will teach you what customers want, what they need. They'll give you feedback. They'll help you design your product. They'll help you improve it. So here the government's role is to be a good customer, to purchase transparently, to make it visible what their needs are, and foster the growth of companies, not by investing directly and taking equity, but by being good customers and helping these companies grow by actually generating revenues. Then, of course, the government can do lots of things around real estate, making facilities available, spreading Wi-Fi, even improving roads and traffic so that people want to live in places like Skolkovo and Kazan, and in fact, in Moscow. Another thing I hope those of you from outside Russia will do is travel on the metro. It's one of my favorite achievements of both Soviet and Russian government. It continues to grow. Unfortunately, it's not growing quite as fast as the traffic, but it's still growing. A final thing about governments, and then I'd like to take questions and answers. The US government recently passed a law called the Jobs Act. It stands for Jumpstart Our Business Startups, or something like that. Brigitte said she would ask me about it, but I figured I'd just end with this and see where it takes us. Americans are wonderful people. They're idealists. They believe everybody is good. They believe everybody should own his own home. They believe every entrepreneur should be able to get funding. And so they passed this act to make it much easier for small companies to raise money. And other governments are asking, should they follow this? Instead of having an IPO with very stringent disclosure requirements and all kinds of regulation, you can simply go to a website, perhaps get a little bit of analysis from some third party and ask the public for money. It's going to create a lot of competition for you angels, because now everybody who's not an entrepreneur can be an angel. Unfortunately, I think that's a really bad idea. The last such idealistic thing the American government did was to help everybody in America buy a house. Many people who couldn't buy houses still invested in a mortgage. Many banks sold people houses that these people couldn't afford. And then they took the package of mortgage investments and sold it to another bank who didn't understand what was in there. And it created a huge, beautiful housing market with prices rising for several years. And then everything crashed down because the people couldn't afford to pay their mortgages, there were too many houses, and it created huge problems for the US financial markets and to some extent for the world. I think we'll have the same problems here. Not everyone should be an entrepreneur, and not everyone should be an angel investor. You should be an angel investor only if you can afford to lose all your money. That's the reality. And you should be an entrepreneur only if you have the skills to make that stone soup. But if everybody walks into town with a stone, who's going to provide the vegetables and the meat? Who's going to be the sales manager for the entrepreneur? Who's going to be the head of human resources? Who's going to build the products? If everybody becomes an entrepreneur, there's no employees for these entrepreneurs, and there are too many entrepreneurs competing for the same customers. So I believe a little bit of friction is actually a good thing. That we want angel investors, we want entrepreneurs, but we also want customers and employees. The angels in this room, you have a very important role in selecting people who can be good entrepreneurs and helping those particular people succeed. An economy where everybody succeeds as an entrepreneur is not a real economy. So I hope you follow all my advice, but I hope you do not have your own Jobs Act. And I wish everybody all the best, and I'd be happy to take some questions because we have a little time. And if you don't have questions, again, I have some of my own.
Thank you. Great presentation. I've made about 50 angel investments, about 25 of which were...
Do you want maybe stand?
Yeah, because then also the interpreter can't hear you too.
Thank you. Great presentation. I've made about 50 angel investments, of which 25 were stone soup with no meat and no vegetables. My question for you is that you made some positive statements about what governments can do. I'd like to ask you to tick off for us the list of the things that governments should not do to promote the entrepreneurial environment.
Okay. Basically, I think the first thing governments should not do is pick individual investments. Their job is to provide infrastructure, platforms, education, roads, internet foundations, but they should not be helping one private company compete with another. And the US government does this sometimes too much as well. Just let angels, let investors, let private banks make the investment decisions. The moment government tries to get involved in investing, two problems happen. One, if the government does what a good investor does, which is to take a risk, inevitably it will have 3 successes and maybe 20 failures. The newspapers will write about the failures. Because government people are responsible for spending the public's money. They shouldn't waste it. investors are allowed to waste it. It's their own money. The government shouldn't. And so those constraints on the government that it can't take real risk, and at the same time it doesn't support winners, it creates winners by using government funds. To me, that's why the government should stay out of investing. It can co-invest, it can perhaps support projects like Skolkovo, it can support IT parks, but the more it gets involved in individual selection, the worse it is for everybody. Better to have lower taxes and let the angel investors choose. I'm sure everybody here will support that.
I have a question about the Jobs Act.
Yeah.
I was told by the papers, by the way, that the Silicon Valley was behind that. I wondered, they are entrepreneurs. They know what it takes to be a good entrepreneur. So why, in your mind, is really Silicon Valley behind that?
I don't know. Many of my friends are behind it. Steve Case is behind it. But I'll tell you one of my own personal experiences. I was chairman of ICANN, the Internet Corporation for Assigned Names and Numbers. It's the organization that regulates the domain name system. It has a complicated history, but the idea was to regulate the people who register names, sell names, and so forth. It was created, again, with great idealism. The domain name system business is a sleazy business. It's a dirty business, fundamentally. And now they are not accountable to anybody. And there are a lot of bad people, fraudulent people, using domain names to create websites full of malware. And ICANN is not regulating them effectively. Every time you have too much faith in human nature, if 90% of people are good, 10% of people are still bad. And maybe 5% of them would like to be good, but they see money and they get too excited. It's just too many times I've seen idealistic projects turn into cesspools, into gryazные места of problems. And the people in Silicon Valley, they're mostly good people. They're idealistic. They're working hard. They're entrepreneurs. They think everyone is like them. But unfortunately, that's not true. And I don't agree with them. Also, frankly, I think right now there's kind of a bubble in Silicon Valley. And I think the prices people are paying for startups indicate that these guys are living somewhat apart from the rest of the world.
Esther, I'm Frank Peters from Tech Coast Angels in Los Angeles.
Do you support the Jobs Act?
Well, that's a good question. I am, though. You touched on so many interesting aspects of it. I wanted to give a plug. Do you know there's a breakout session today at 2 o'clock? And I'm going to moderate a panel on crowdfunding. So pardon me for this shameless plug right now. Would you all come to my session, and we're going to sink our teeth into these same issues. Thank you, Esther.
Okay. I'm not against crowdfunding per se if it's carefully managed. My concern is that, just like there are good and bad banks, there are good and bad companies, but creating a wholesale platform without enough oversight leads to danger.
Esther, I have one question. Okay. One of the reasons, as you heard, that we're here is for investors from many different countries to get to know each other and to potentially do cross-border investing, because usually 95% plus of investments, we do it in our home country. You're a wonderful example of investing in multiple continents, including in Russia. Could you tell us a little bit about what investments you've made and what are the lessons learned of doing cross-border investing and even the specifics of within Russia.
Okay.
In 2 minutes.
In 2 minutes.
You have 5.
Well, first, for the foreigners, I want to tell the story of my first Russian investment. This was back in 1992 or 3 or 4, something long, long ago. Stepan Pachikov, how many of you know him? Not as many. So he was one of the first Russian entrepreneurs, just a little before Sasha Golitsky. And he had a company called Paragraph, which did handwriting recognition. I invited him to my conference in California, introduced him to Steve Jobs and Bill Gates, and as separately, but around the same time. And then one day he called me up, this was before we were all using email, and he said, "My lawyer is going to call you. Please sign the documents he sends. We would like to give you 1% of Paragraph as a gift, thanking you for your help." So my first investment in Russia was just a little bit of time. But the purpose of this story is all the bad things you hear about Russia, they're not all true. I have never been cheated in Russia. I've certainly lost money, that's different. Where you lose money with the investor, everything's fair. The only place I've been cheated, in fact, is in Poland by an American. By an American. So the biggest difference between the US and Russia right now, I'd like to say American salesmen are salesmen squared. They're just so friendly and cheerful. And Russian engineers are engineers squared. They're not very friendly often, and they don't look at you when they talk, but they are very, very smart. And the challenge is to give Russia some of those sales and presentation and communication skills, and to give the Americans a little more technical capabilities, many of which now come from Russians, Chinese, and Indians. If you walk out on the street in Silicon Valley, you can just say, "Is there a CFO for me to hire?" And 3 people will show up. You cannot yet do that in Moscow. You can perhaps in Digital October, but even in Digital October, you're more likely to find an engineer than an accountant or a sales manager. What Russia really lacks is what you, Angel, from my experience, the biggest challenge here is not finding entrepreneurs and not finding smart, honest people with energy, but finding the next group, finding people who know how to manage other people, managers who know how to grow people who will succeed them, entrepreneurs who have been successful and have given up control to a manager so that they can go become an angel investor. In 10 years, lots of people here will be on their second or third business, and that will no longer be true. But right now, the biggest difference is experience. Okay. Great.
Еще один вопрос есть. Еще один вопрос, пожалуйста.
Yeah.
Очень коротко. Меня зовут Светлана Габуни, я совладелец телеканала «Успех», который предназначен специально для малого и среднего бизнеса в России и для управленцев. Я бы хотела задать вопрос следующий. Есть ли в Америке подобные каналы, которые поддерживают малый и средний бизнес в Америке? И если, коль уж является, или если является поддержка предпринимательства государственной программой, то вкладывает ли государство деньги в подобные СМИ, или это все-таки прерогатива владельцев данных СМИ?
Okay. The first part of the question was whether there are entrepreneurs and entrepreneurial supporters, but the second was about SME. Подробно о SME? TV channels, yeah. Whether they invest in TV channels or for small business. So our government does a lot of things in many places, and perhaps one important thing is there's a big difference between the central government and local governments, both in Russia and in the US. So I don't know whether the government invests specifically in a TV channel for entrepreneurs. It certainly supports some public television. There are some shows for entrepreneurs. There's also many commercial shows for entrepreneurs. And our government also has something called the Small Business Investment, something, SBIR, Small Business Administration. They do things for small businesses. Some of them are controversial. Our government has funded companies that have failed against my advice and has gotten a lot of criticism for doing that. The best thing the US government can do is improve our education system, which so far it's not really doing, though it's trying. It's kind of a messy, diverse picture, just as it is in Russia. There's local programs, federal programs, but certainly as a percentage of the economy, small business is much, much larger. As a percentage of government investment in the US, business in general is much smaller. Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I mean, it's so true what you said, Esther, about Russia has such a negative image attached to it. And my job over the past 6 years on television is to show actually that it is an amazing place to live and to do business. We now have a networking break for half an hour, so if you'd like to go outside and talk amongst yourselves, and then we've got the first discussion group at 11 o'clock in half an hour time. Thank you very much, and thank you. I'll show you.